Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G draft strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league wide as submitted by the Apples and Genos Discord server. Let's get it. All right, welcome on in, everybody, to another Puzzling Players live stream. Michael's already in here, wants to know if Blake beat the record, of course, alluding to the reason that Blake couldn't be on the flagship show. If you haven't listened to the flagship show yet, in there, Blake wasn't able to join us because he was going for that bench press world record. Obviously, you know that our boy came through for us. He beat the record, confirmed it on Twitter for us. So, yeah, new world record holder. Shout out to Blake. That absolutely tremendously chiseled man. He kind of sits differently in the podcast. He doesn't want to be prideful. He doesn't want to show off the chest too much. But, if you meet him in person, you'll be impressed. Let's leave it at that for now. All right. Welcome on in, everybody. I'm going to get straight to it here. If you got comments as you're joining, drop them in. Usually we can get to all the comments over the course of the hour or so that we've got together. But I'm going to lead it off. Matt Boldy, number 1. Most requested puzzling player for the last little bit here in the Apples and Geos Discord server. Just 1 goal and 2 points in his last 5 games here. 20 minutes average time on ice, so it's not for a lack of ice time. 143rd shots per 60, 40th in shot attempts, 124th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 143 Corsi, 4 per 60, down at 247 in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. On pace now for 34 goals, 77 points on the season. On the season, though, obviously some numbers are a little bit better here. Similar average time on ice, but 14th shots per 60, 68th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 in the 50s in the on-ice numbers. And 71% IPP, 11.9% shooting percentage, 11.2% on ice shooting percentage. Yeah, I think that we can reasonably expect a little bit better from Matt Boldy, honestly. It doesn't feel like Matt Boldy's been letting us down, but it hasn't been the best stretch of his season for sure over the last little bit. It doesn't help that Zuccarello came back and Boldy is back to the second line, but so far it hasn't really had a huge effect, it seems like, on his ice time, at least. Boldy's going to be out there whenever they need a goal. Matt Boldy is absolutely that dude for them. Played 23 minutes in this 3-2 loss to Vegas on Sunday, so definitely if they need him to be out there, he's going to be out there. Yeah, it's a little bit weird that he hasn't been able to generate shots. The last 3 games, he's only got 2 shots total amongst those 3 games, so that is a bit weird, but until it becomes a little bit more of a trend than that, I'm not going to worry too much because, in all the games before that, he went on a what is this, a 6-game streak where he shot at least 4 times in 6 straight games. So a little 3-game streak where he's struggling to shoot. Zuccarello comes back in, messes with the lines a little bit. He's got to find some new footing with some new line mates. I'm not going to sweat it too much. Worth watching for sure. You never know. It could be just a sign, maybe got nicked up somewhere along the way and that's affecting him. We want to be cognizant that these things can happen and we don't want to just bury our head in the sand and say he was terrific before and he'll be terrific again, no question. We want to keep our eyes open and our minds open to all sorts of possibilities for a reason that a player could not be performing the way they once were, but I'm not ready to get any kind of concerned yet. I don't think it's like a sell moment or anything like that. I'm still all in on Matt Boldy. Let's get back to the comments. Toronto Dave's in here. Hashtag 0G. Good to see you. CG says best content. Appreciate that. Sam King says traded Timo for Tage. What do you guys think? Did I win the trade? Trading away Timo to acquire Tage. Yeah. In a head-to-head points league, heavily favoring goals, game winners, power play points, and PIMs. I think it's reasonable, but yeah, I would prefer Tage there. Power play one feels assured. Top line, he is the guy, right, in Buffalo, whereas Timo is doesn't have to be the guy in New Jersey because they've got a lot of guys. So yeah, I think in general, especially if you're heavily favoring goals, obviously Thompson is a guy who can do that. Timo's a guy who can do that too, but a little less opportunity to do so in New Jersey. So yeah, I'll take Tage there 9 times out of 10 for sure. CG, better two rest of season holds. Sorry. Verhaeghe, Bennett, or McCann. 12 team points. I'll take Verhaeghe and McCann there unless you have some pretty crazy hits weight. Unless there's a pretty crazy hits weight that brings you back towards Bennett, I'll take Verhaeghe and McCann there. CG says Sam seems even to me. Oh, the Timo for Tage trade. Not too far off for sure. Chichi Mini, thoughts on Colton rest of the season? Colton is on the list for sure. We will get there. Gomer Jackson, hey Nate, thanks for the stream. Bit worried about Dahlin as far as ongoing spasms for the rest of the year. So yeah, Dahlin's been out for a while now. I think 6 games maybe it is now with these back spasms that he's been dealing with. Has been placed on IR. It's been 6 games now and seems like he's in line to miss at least a 7th here on Tuesday. So yeah, it's definitely concerning because it is an injury that you wonder if it doesn't, just kind of aggravate and flare up again and cause missed time throughout a season. So yeah, I would say it's concerning, but I don't really know what you're going to do. Like, if anything, it's a buy low moment on Dahlin and just taking that swing that he's going to be okay. But you're not going to I would caution against selling low here because I don't think you're going to get, I don't know. I'm trying to think who you could reasonably sell Dahlin for with these back spasms now that everybody knows about, and who you're going to get, and you're going to be happy with that rest of the season. I'm struggling to come up with a name that I would reasonably make that deal for because it feels like it's an even bet whether Dahlin deals with something rest of the season or he comes back and he's exactly what we thought he'd be. He's like a top 5 fantasy defenseman rest of the season, and all of a sudden you're kicking yourself for selling for pennies on the dollar. All right, FF Tyler O's in here. This should be good. Doug Wade is on waivers. Should I grab him? If Doug Wade is on waivers, you got to grab that. That is Doug Wade make the Hall of Fame? I feel like he was close enough, but I don't think he made the Hall of Fame, did he? Doug Wade, Hall of Fame. He did, 2013. Doug Wade. What did he get in terms of points? This is going way back. Finished his career 2011. And he ended up with he played 1,238 games, 1,033 points. There you go. Doug Wade, tremendous pull there for FF Tyler O. Gomer Jackson, like the stream, boys. Appreciate you. Richard Habibi, how sustainable is Hagel rest of season? We can throw Brandon Hagel on the list for sure and take a quick look under the hood. Hagel's got 5 goals, 6 points. His last 5, over 20 minutes. 100th in shots per 60, 30th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Like to see that. 121st, Corsi, 4 per 60, and 89th in scoring chances, 4 per 60 on a 44-goal, 102-point pace. Absolutely living it this year is Brandon Hagel. 60% IPP. Yeah, that's probably in line for a guy like Hagel, but definitely I think he could be better than that. So I don't want to unnecessarily dog on the guy for any reason. 16.7% on ice shooting percentage and 19.2% individual shooting percentage are definitely 2 numbers that feel a little bit unsustainable when it comes to Brandon Hagel. Just looking up his previous season stats here. So the other couple of seasons here, he's been 16.9 shooting percentage and 14.1. So yeah, you would expect him. He did have that one season in Chicago where he shot 22%. So there is some sort of precedent here for him to be a pretty high efficiency shooter. 19% still feels a little rich there. The scoring chance to shot attempt ratio is high, so that does lend some credence to him being a high percentage converter. I think he can bump the IPP up, but the on-ice shooting percentage at 16.7 is definitely going to come down. So where does that leave Hagel when all is said and done? Probably, I think he can push a point per game with this kind of deployment. He's taken a massive step in deployment this year. 19:15 average time on ice last year, 21:18 this year in the first 28 games of the season. So if that's sustaining, that's obviously a huge bump to what we were previously expecting for Brandon Hagel. I think he can get to maybe like a 35 goal, 80 point pace the rest of the season, and that can be obviously huge for you. But definitely the on ice shooting percentage is running incredibly hot right now, and that's not going to continue. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that Hagel is performing much better and will continue to perform much better than any projection really had for him at the beginning of the year, but I do think we should not expect him to keep up a 100-point pace. Ian, is a third round pick in a keeper league enough to acquire points? Already shipped off a second for cap. Not to make my comment too convoluted, but the league resets next year. Cap and point would be rentals. I guess it would depend. So if you're keeping, then I'm assuming that there's a certain number of rounds where, like the first, if it's a keep 3, the first 3 rounds don't really count. And so it's really like a third round pick actually becomes like a 6th round pick, that sort of thing. So if you can give me a little bit more context about the rounds of the picks here, then maybe I can do that. I mean, assuming that I'm trying to grasp exactly what's going on here, because if the league resets, does that mean that it is just a true 2nd round pick and a true 3rd round pick? I mean, I'm all for going all in on a season, but if you need keepers next year, then you're going to want some picks to acquire some guys who can be keepers for you moving forward. So yeah, a little bit more context there would help. But in general, I'm about going all in when you get a chance. But yeah, definitely, I think something here that I might want to get a little bit of extra context on to be able to give you a clear definition one way or the other. Armin says, 0G, baby, we thinking Jarry or Gibson for wins and save percentage. Definitely Jarry there. I mean, save percentage between these two guys, I don't know that you can count on either, but Jarry's probably going to get more run than Gibson. Feels like a 50-50 with Gibson and Dostal right now. And yeah, I think that Gibson may go to a place where he gets a little bit more run. If there is a team out there that needs a goalie, injuries can happen. They might go for a goalie. That can happen. But until it does happen, I'm going Jarry there. Ian says, thanks for live stream. No problem. My treat, I guess. That was a weird thing to say. I like my own comments. It says, pick 2, RNH, Wyatt Johnston, Buchnevich, or McMichael rest of season. Wow, that is a truly tough pick. Without knowing exactly what your league situation is, I'm going to just kind of assume some sort of baseline points league with some light banger weighting. And in that context, wow, this is really, really tough. I don't want to drop McMichael because I think he has a ton of potential, but I think I have to. I think the safest thing to do is RNH and Wyatt Johnston, but man, these could be like, if I was ranking every player in the league, these guys might all just be back to back to back to back. It's that close for me. That is a tough list for sure. Chad Banks, let's talk about the greatness that is Logan Cooley. You don't have to convince me, my man. I am all about Logan Cooley this year. Was on him as a sleeper before the season, along with Dylan Ganther. Looks to be coming true. I'm excited about it. Richard Habibi, maybe Bouchard. I'm assuming this is about the Dahlin. The chat is moving too fast. I can't keep up, but I'm assuming this is about who you could trade Dahlin for. I don't think you're getting Bouchard for Dahlin, quite honestly. If you could, I would do that. I'll leave it at that. Armin, thoughts on Olofsson, Voronkov, Duclair? How do you rank them? Right now, you got to take, these are all guys that are kind of like streamer level, right? So right now, you got to take Olofsson because he's hot, I think. And then I'd take Duclair over Voronkov at the moment, just based on what I see as the most likely deployment. Voronkov's on this weird Marchenko Fantilli line at the moment, and then they did run the Monahan Voronkov Marchenko line as well. They kind of split the lines, and I don't know, maybe I missed a tweet, but I didn't see anything. Nothing new. So it doesn't look like we've got any new lines as of today that I've been able to find anyway. So I'm the new lines, if he's line 1, power play 1 there in Columbus, then maybe you could make an argument for Voronkov, but I'd take Duclair over him right now. CG, best 2 rest of season, Stolars, Kemper, or Blackwood. Wow, that is tough. Definitely a spot where it would matter. Like if you're in a Cats league that's more focused on rate stats, like if you have goals against average and save percentage, that leans Stolar's way. If you need sheer volume, then you could make the argument for Kemper and Blackwood because I think both of those guys are in line to probably get a little bit more volume there. But how do you leave off Stolar's? Wow. Um, yeah, I think you got to keep Stolar's with how well it's gone so far. And then I think I'd go Blackwood. I think there might be a little bit more ceiling there, but yeah, definitely the format matters a lot between those three. SCG says, yeah, it's still no McGillney in the Hall of Fame. That is a travesty. That should be corrected, but running out of faith that it will. Christopher Skeller need to drop Paterka, Cousins, or Iceland Dell for Jeek and Sorelli, both on waivers. Yeah, I think you can drop. I think I would drop Cousins and Lindell for sure there. Um, yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, you definitely want to keep yourself open to streaming spots and not be too tied down. But yeah, both of those guys probably should be rostered unless this is like a 10-team league or less. But yeah, I think I'd be pretty comfortable dropping Cousins and Lindell there. Last ones, well, if it's Mr. Nate himself, that is what they call me. CG, best rest of season, Spurgeon, Zellweger, Falk, Orlov. Interesting group there. I think Zellweger has the most potential, but it's definitely questionable what might happen there. It was Zellweger's on the list, so we'll get there. What it did throw me for a loop that he was just kind of unceremoniously dropped from the lineup. Now Cam Fowler's out of town, so you think Zellweger probably gets back in the lineup and stays there. But yeah, it definitely paints the player in a new light. I think, you can look at the underlying numbers and say they're terrific, but it doesn't matter if Cronin's not going to play them, right? So the highest ceiling, I would say, is Zellweger. The best floor is Justin Falk. The middle road is Jaron Spurgeon. I don't think Orlov is a thing. Yeah, I think I would take Zellweger still. These are all guys that I feel like are kind of on the periphery of your lineup. And so I'm just going to ride with the guy with the highest upside, hope it hits. If it doesn't hit, I'll move on to the next one and kind of take it from there. Lenny says, need to drop one when guys get healthy. Drew, Rossi, or Sherwood. Peripherals have Sherwood outperforming both. Yeah, if it's a bangers Cats, then I don't think you can drop Sherwood, right? But if it's a little bit more of a, just a points league with some banger waiting, then it's much more of a conversation. I think it's probably Rossi here. I'm curious what Drew's underlyings have looked like. I haven't looked at that in a hot minute here. So Claude Drew, not hot, that's for sure. And the minutes have come down. That's interesting. Yeah, that's concerning for sure for Drew. It's not the youngest guy in the league anymore as well. Was playing with Stutzla and Gaudette on the line. It's a decent spot to be for sure with Stutzla, but wow. I didn't expect that to be as tough as a question as I've made it on myself by looking up Drew's last 5 games here. Um, I'm struggling a little bit. Like, I really like Rossi's spot right now, but I am obviously thinking about the fact that we're probably going to get a Jeek back, and then Rossi's spot on the top line, top power play is probably gone, whereas Drew at least has more of a stable spot in the lineup, you would have to think. I think probably you're going to drop Rossi, well, just because he's probably going to be next to nothing. That being said, if he does stick with a Boldy line and he can find some chemistry on a second line there, could be something there. Interesting spot for sure. I think it's a coin flip between Drew and Rossi for me, assuming that you just kind of have to keep Sherwood here with them performing that way with the hits. But yeah, definitely a tighter spot than I thought. I'll go Rossi final answer, but I don't feel settled about that. Let's say CG, appreciate you. Drewski says, let's go. SK93, who do you think has better future outlook in a Banger Cats League, J-Rob or Michkov? Looking to flip one of them for a goalie. In a Bangers Cats League, I mean, I don't think either of these guys are going to give you a ton of hits and blocks over the course of a season, right? So I don't think that's going to make my make my decision for me one way or another. What's Michkov got? He's thrown 11 hits and 7 blocks so far this year. What's Jason Robertson rocking? 18 hits and 14 blocks. Wow, huge difference there. No, I think Michkov has tremendous potential for sure. We're obviously seeing that in the early going here. Um, but if we're talking just for the rest of the season, it's still pretty up in the air for me. Let's throw him in the sheet. Let's compare side by side here for a minute. Matvei Michkov versus Jason Robertson. Both have 5 points the last 5 games. Robertson, more time on ice. Michkov, better shots, worse individual scoring chances for. J-Rob, better on ice numbers. Plays in Dallas, go figure. Yeah, I think you got to go J-Rob still. But it's closer than anybody thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season. That's for damn sure. Chichimini, how are Nečas numbers looking right now? Martin Nečas has been obviously the talk of the town. 5 points his last 5. 20 minutes a night. 114th shots per 60, 186 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 6th in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 76th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60 on 120-point pace. And definitely the underlying numbers still going pretty wild here. But yeah, I don't see a major fall-off happening here. Like, this is tracking with his season-long numbers pretty well to this point. So, yeah, the underlying numbers haven't really changed. He's just running hot. That's all there is to it. Yeah, can he be a point per game player? Yeah, I think so. Can he be a 90-point player? Maybe rest of season, like as a pace rest of season. 120 points, no. Michael Rowland, Bjorkstrand, a good streamer for the week. Yeah, I talked about Bjorkstrand in the flagship show yesterday. Definitely a guy that can pop off. He has been popping off as of late. The underlying metrics don't suggest that it's something that we should expect to continue, but can he do it for a few more games here? It's as good a bet as any, so I don't mind it for this week. Ian, in regards to the point question, basically we started the keeper league 2 years ago, can only keep players for 3 years max, so a lot of elite players are going back to the pool next year. I got you. Okay, so it would be a true third-round pick for point, planning on going all in even at the expense of being bad next 1-2 years. Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense now. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad plan. I mean, you got to win the thing. If you're gonna make these moves, you got to win the thing. But I think you're already kind of pot committed with Kaprizov, so I'm not mad at it. You might be buying at the highest possible point with point. Figure out a better way to say that in the future, but you're probably buying at the absolute highest for Braden Point right now. So, maybe there's a better buy window on him at a later point in the season, and you don't have to do it at this exact moment. That's kind of at your discretion, what the situation is. The manager is really trying to move him right now, whatever the case may be. But yeah, just keep that in mind, I guess. Drewski, in Cup will drop Spurgeon for Olofsson. Yeah, I think that's fine, especially if you've got room for Olofsson for all the games. That being said, I did want to check because I don't think Vegas has a great schedule moving forward here. Definitely this week is not great. So, yeah, they're only playing Thursday, Saturday. So that's obviously not a great schedule. If he's going to play both games for you, that's one thing. If he's not going to play both games for you, then I'm not really that interested in adding Olofsson. Next week, it's as good a schedule as it gets with the 3 days off around Christmas. It's a really weird schedule that week anyway. So Vegas plays 3 games, which is as good as it gets across the league. So yeah, I don't mind it. I don't think it's really going to hurt you too bad. But if Olofsson's not playing for you this week, then I'm much more concerned about using my ads to get me wins this week than I am at trying to catch lightning in a bottle with Victor Olofsson. Lenny said exactly how I feel. Appreciate the feedback. Cheers. No problem. All right. We are back to the list, and Victor Olofsson is next up here, so let's dig in. 4 goals, 6 points in his last 5 games here, 16 minutes average time on ice, 15th in shots per 60, 11th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 39th Corsi, 4 per 60, 48th scoring chances, 4 per 60. Really good stuff there. And I did see a note that Olofsson got on the top line at even strength with Eichel and Mark Stone after Barbashev was dinged up. I didn't see anything about Barbashev. I'm trying to see if there's anything there. There wasn't an update really after the game. He was going to get looked at in Vegas, upper body injury. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything on Twitter right now. If anybody has a better update than that, then by all means jump in the comments here and let us know. But I haven't seen anything through the day, and I'm not seeing anything with a quick search here. So I don't think there's any news on Barbashev just yet. If Olofsson's on top line and top power play, then obviously that's a really good spot for him, and I'd be excited about that. I mean, there's plenty of reason to be excited. You know, the shots per 60 rank, individual scoring chance for per 60 rank is good right now. Olofsson feels kind of like Oliver Bjorkstrand a little bit to me, like one of these guys who can pop off in short spaces. Definitely has shown chemistry with Eichel in the past, so I'm not discounting it on that sense, but definitely like the 67-point pace that he's run in the games he has played. You know, he's only played 11 games on the season due to injury so far this year, but like 15.8% on ice shooting percentage, 26% shooting percentage. These things won't continue. So, yeah, overall, like I think Olofsson is a great guy to have in your lineup right now. Do I think that he's going to be a great guy to have in your lineup all season? Probably not. So that's my take on Olofsson at the moment. These are guys, though, I I want to kind of make this a little bit more of a general topic with Olofsson specifically. With the schedule that Vegas has this week, like even if Olofsson was available in a lot of my leagues and he's not, if he was available in a lot of my leagues with the 2 game week this week, Thursday, Saturday, if he's not playing both of those days for me, like if I have better players that are playing above Olofsson both those days this week for me, then Olofsson is a drop. If I have him on my roster, if he's out there and he's not going to play both days for me, then I'm not picking him up. Like, I think people chase the latest thing too much. Even if the metrics are good, even if the production is there, even if, you know, everything looks like it's just wheels up. I don't chase these players. I try to align schedules and hot streaks, and you can do that over the course of the season. You can find players that will stick in your lineup over the course of the season. I'm doing this in all my leagues. I'm doing this against really good competition. I don't think it's rocket science, quite honestly. I think people wind up chasing players like this a little bit too much, and they feel like they have to pick this guy up. How can he still be on waivers in my league? And then they bench him, and they only get a game out of them, and then they're wondering why they're losing their weeks when they're only getting, you know, 1 game played out of the guy they picked up, and they probably dropped the guy who would have played 2 games for them, might have outscored the player that they picked up on that particular week. I think people don't have as much emphasis on the current matchup, on living in the current matchup that they're in, as they probably should. And you got to win each matchup along the way to get to the playoffs at the end of the day. And so I'm a little bit more focused on the day to day, I would say, than really trying to like catch lightning in a bottle with the Victor Olofssons, the Oliver Bjorkstrands of the world. Dougie Hamilton next up here. Curiously, he's got 0 points in his last 5 games here. Does it go back further than that? No, just the last 5 games. Has been up and down with the ice time a little bit, under 20 minutes average time on ice here. 64 shots per 60, still 6th in shot attempts per 60 amongst defensemen in the last 5 games. 19th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 9th on ice Corsi, 4 per 60. 14th on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Pretty typical stuff that we are expecting to see from Dougie Hamilton. But it is a little curious to see the ice time coming down. I mean, first amongst all defensemen, shots per 60 on the season. First in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. 35% IPP is ridiculous for a guy like Dougie Hamilton. 13% on-ice shooting percentage might be a little hot, but definitely he deserves better than what he's gotten so far. As long as he's on power play 1, I am way into Dougie Hamilton. Might be a buy low moment for him at the moment. The only thing that gives me any pause with Dougie Hamilton whatsoever is the fact that Luke Hughes is behind him. We all saw what happened with Luke Hughes last year. Different coach for sure, different situation for sure, but it's still Luke Hughes. It's still Jack Hughes' little brother. that's still a looming specter that could take over that top power play at a moment's notice there and leave Dougie Hamilton behind if he's not producing in a stretch like this. So I'd be lying if I said I don't have some concern about that. And it's probably the only reason I haven't gone out to try to acquire more Dougie Hamilton just yet. That being said, like if he's really starting to fall off and people are really starting to, doubt him, then yeah, I definitely would be trying to make some deals. I don't know how low you can possibly go to acquire Dougie Hamilton. I'm trying to see what his points on the season are. Like, I feel like he was so good earlier on that even this latest stretch is probably not enough to get off of Dougie Hamilton. But I mean, if you could, I'm trying to find an equivalent player that I'd be willing to move off of and to get somewhere. I just don't know if there's any players that really are going to move the needle for your opposing manager. Like Zach Werenski versus Dougie Hamilton rest of the season, I'm taking Werenski now. That's not where I thought I'd be, but I'm taking Werenski now. And that might be kind of the player that you would have to give up to get to a Dougie Hamilton at this point. Maybe a Shea Theodore. I mean, maybe you can deal that, but Shea Theodore doesn't have the name brand value either. John Carlson is in this range. Noah Dobson, maybe now that he's hot again. Maybe you can get that deal done. Mackenzie Weegar, maybe, especially if it's in a bit more banger heavy format. You could get something like that done. I don't know. It would be tough to find the right deal to acquire a Dougie Hamilton or to move off of a Dougie Hamilton, honestly, right now either. So, yeah, I feel like Dougie Hamilton is just a guy that's going to be on my roster at this point. And I don't know if I'm going to go out and acquire him. Maybe there's a forward for D trade that you can make or something like that. 2-for-2 swap, something like that to get it done if you want to investigate. But it could be worth just checking out how low the Dougie Hamilton manager in your league, how low they are on him after this latest stretch. If they're a bit more of the fish memory type of manager, and it's a lot more of what have you done for me lately, then maybe you can get something done here. Maybe they are worried about Luke Hughes and they are willing to sell a little bit low, and you can reap some benefits there. But yeah, I don't think there's much to be done with Dougie Hamilton other than just wait for it to turn around at this point. Andrei Svechnikov, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points in his last 5, 18.5 minutes average time on ice, 26 shots per 60, 74th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, first in the league in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 49th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60 over the last 5 here. On a 30-goal, 66-point pace, under 18 minutes average time on ice. Thank you, Rod Brindamore. Really good underlying metrics on the season. 55% IPP is usually higher, and the shooting percentage could probably be a touch higher for Svechnikov as well. I feel like it's the same old thing. Like Svechnikov is getting 18.5 minutes right now. There will probably be another stretch a little bit later on where he's getting under 17, and it all just averages out to another 18-minute a night season for Andrei Svechnikov, and we're all left just a little bit frustrated. And Bangers Cats, obviously, he brings you the hits. He does a little bit more for you in that situation. But yeah, Svechnikov, having great season underlying, definitely deserves a bit better than what he's put up so far. But at the end of the season, do I really expect him to, have absolutely crushed and demanded 20 minutes a night? I don't think that's in the cards in Carolina. So I feel like the ceiling is capped just by the coaching there, unfortunately. All right, let's go back to the comments. Michael says, would you trade Brandon Hagel for Brandon Montour in a points league? No, I would not. Or Fiala and Genther for Montour. Just need a D-man. Everybody in my league won't budge. Seems to be my best option. No, that's too much to give up for Montour. Yeah, I don't think anybody needs a defenseman that badly. Blake wants to know why Nason is a league winner. If I'm building this scenario, if I'm building this like ceiling outcome for Stefan Nason, it looks like he gets into the top 6, not there currently, but he gets back into the top 6. He rides on, let's say, the Hughes Bratt line, and he runs interference on that line, and he gets an outsized IPP rest of season. He lives on the top power play rest of season, no question. He's able to keep up these crazy metrics of the last few games. And he kind of rides that out, and it's like a 65, 70-point season for Stefan Nason with maybe 30 goals. That I feel like is really the absolute ceiling outcome for Stefan Nason this season. So that's where I'm at on that. Drewski, good take, Nate, on trying to win the week's matchup, not falling in love with fringe players. Yeah, I think it's important. I feel like it's not something that I've talked about enough, to be honest. So wanted to make sure I got that out into the ether. Clixie's in here. Thoughts on Mrazek after the groin injury? Other goalies are Saros, Decord, and Kempfer. Is he worth holding still, trying to upgrade Decord or Kempfer into a forward? 12-team cupful. Yeah, I mean, in a 12 team, I would be happy to move off of one of those guys and just even try Mrazek. And if he gets injured again and you have to go down to only 2 goaltenders, I don't think that's a bad situation in a points league either. So I'm not going to be too worried about that either way. Definitely, I would try to upgrade Decord or Kemper into a forward. You know, if you can do a 2-for-1 where you add Decord or Kemper to one of your existing forwards and get a better forward, that's definitely a scenario I'd be looking at. And then you hope that Mrazek is all the way better after the groin injury, but even if he's not, even if things go sideways there, you can still drop him. You can run 2 goalies, and it's not going to be the end of the world for you for sure. Gomer Jackson, Blake owes me a calendar. The new year's coming up soon. Yeah, maybe we can add the world record setting bench press pick there. Jordan says, hey, Nate, thoughts on Kreider rest of season? We can add Chris Kreider here real quick. Weird vibes, definitely, with the Rangers and Kreider. Not immune. 0 points in his last 16.5 minutes. Average time on ice. Yeah, just a tough spot to be for Chris Kreider. Underlying metrics don't look too bad. 30th shots per 60. You got 61st individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. You know, that's something that Kreider's obviously known for. He was playing with Sam Carrick and Adam Edstrom in the last game, which is horrendous stuff. But yeah, they threw the lines into an absolute blender in this game against the Blues. They are just absolutely reeling right now, the Rangers are, and I don't know what we can reasonably think is the next step for this team, and that's obviously really concerning. That being said, it's probably like the buy low scenario for Chris Kreider right now. He's missed time, and it sounded like it was an injury that could linger. That part is concerning. Definitely deserves better than a 34-point pace on the season. Still on a 30-goal point pace. 30-goal, 34-point pace on the season for Chris Kreider. Interesting stat line there. Definitely deserves better than that. But yeah, it's a tough scene with the Rangers right now, and you got to wonder what the next shoe to drop could possibly be there. You know, right now I think they're like right on the edge, if not out of a playoff spot right now. I got to check the standings for a minute to verify what I'm saying. But if we go by wild card standings, yeah, they're out of a playoff spot right now. 1 point out of a playoff spot. So it's a tough scene for the Rangers. It's not a scenario they're used to being in. Do I think they get better? I mean, most likely they get better, and they are better from here on out. But there's a lot of stuff. 32 Thoughts podcast, you know, Elliot Friedman talking about Zibanejad only got whatever it was 13 minutes in that game. Feels like they're trying to send him a message. Kako got scratched. Yeah, just terrible vibes for the New York Rangers right now, and you got to factor that in somewhat. But that being said, like if somebody is selling Kreider for absolute pennies on the dollar, I'll go out there and take the chance, right? We've seen what Kreider can be. I mean, he's still on a 30-goal pace, even with this stretch of terrible play. And I mean, maybe it would be a good thing if he got moved to a different team at this point, you know? So yeah, I mean, how good would he look? This is not going to happen. This is absolutely not going to happen. But how good would he look on the A. Matthews-Marner line in Toronto? Yeah, anyway, that's not going to happen, but there are situations where this gets better for Chris Kreider, and so I would be kind of interested as a buy low, depending how low the buy really is. All right, Michael says Ross, Colton, or Kadri in a points league. I think Kadri is definitely safer. Colton might have a little bit higher upside, but I think we've seen this play before with the Colorado Avalanche. They will move guys around the top line. They will move guys around the top power play. We've already seen it with the players being healthy. Middlestat and Colton on the top power play at the moment, but it's been Nichushkin and Lehkonen. Yeah, it's going to be all over the place, in my opinion. Basically throughout the season, rest of season. So I think Colton's going to have stretches where he probably outperforms Kadri, but if you tally all the points up from now to the end of the season, most likely Kadri outperforms him. Paterka or Lundell rest of the week. assuming you're getting all the games from both players, I guess I would take Paterka, but also Buffalo, also a team with pretty bad vibes right now, right? Um, yeah, the owner calling a closed doors meeting. Apparently, the message was the answer's got to be within the room, so go figure it out. So no big changes coming. You got to think that this gets better. Like Paterka, Tuck, Thompson, this isn't rocket science. Reunite them, make them figure it out together. They were able to do it before. Yeah, I realize that Ruff is trying to get them to play the game the right way, and I think Ruff is like, I mean, this is an experienced coach, right? You can argue that he hasn't been able to put some teams over the top or something like that, but Lindy Ruff is better than a lot of other guys who have coached NHL teams in the last few years. Let's say that at the very least, right? So it is a little bit on the players, I think, here, and they just haven't been good enough. And so there is that to it, but I think Paterka, the natural talent, the natural shot generation, he's got to just get pointed in the right direction again. And I think things get going there. And I'm willing to bet that that gets started as soon as this week. He even put together a few points there in some different setups, some different lineup scenarios there. So I think Paterka is the guy. If Barkov continues to be out, you could argue that Lundell is a better choice just on that basis. I didn't see if they posted how the lines were going to shake out actually with Florida. It was Lundell with Losterainen and Reinhart. If he's on the top power play as well, then that'd be good for Lundell. I don't know if that's likely though. It's probably Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Bennett, Kitchuk, top power play. So yeah, it's a solid spot for Lundell, but I think I'd still run Paterka with the assumption that Barkov gets back sooner rather than later. Michael asks, does Wolf a hold? I'm surprised Vladar over the course of the season has had more volume. Wolf has definitely had less stinkers than he has. Yeah, I think they're probably just trying to protect Wolf a little bit, right? Obviously, the goalie of the future for the Calgary Flames, and so they don't want to. They know that this season they probably don't have the best lineup in the league, and so they want to protect Wolf a little bit. But I do think that Wolf is probably a hold. I mean, I don't, as much as any goalie is a hold, right? I don't think any goalie has to be a hold on your on your team the entire season long. I think that's the wrong way to just approach the position in general. But Dustin Wolf, a guy that should get a little bit of run here as long as Vladar is dealing with his issues. And so I picked up Dustin Wolf in a place where he was dropped for this week. I'll see where he's at this week and see if he can't parlay that into just a little bit more of a net share. If he doesn't get the net share, then I'll drop him again. That's how it goes. Is Wool the guy in Toronto now? Definitely. I don't think you can possibly say that at this point. Stolarz has been tremendous. Wool's been tremendous too. It's still 50-50 until further notice. It's been working so well, I don't see why they would have any incentive to change it. Michael asked, were you able to scoop up Blackwood in any of your leagues? Yeah, I got Blackwood in Cupful Tier 1. Before actually I picked him up for the week last week when he was still on San Jose, and then the news came out literally the next day that he got traded to Colorado, so a bit fortuitous there, but also made me feel like I didn't have to go out and waste a lot of ads in other leagues to go get him. And that's actually another situation. We talked earlier about having to have Olofsson. I didn't go out and add Blackwood. There were I think in all three of my other leagues I could have added Blackwood. I had the news earlier than the ads were made, or maybe in one place Blackwood was added before I got the news. But yeah, I basically looked at my rosters and I was like, no, I don't think I have to add Blackwood in these spots. It's gonna mess with my ads for the week too much. I really do value the current week that I'm in that much, where I don't think that Blackwood getting traded to Colorado is a situation where I absolutely must, invalidate all my planning for the week and go add that player. I don't know that there are any goalies that I'm that excited about. So yeah, just a little bit more on that mindset, week versus season long. All right, we got to get back to the list. We're barely getting the surface scratched here. Philip Forsberg, 3 assists last 5 games. still continuing to have a hard time finding the back of the net. 18.5 minutes average time on ice, 17th shots per 60, 5th in shot attempts, 30th individual scoring chances for, 26th in both Corsi 4 per 60 and on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. I mean, these pucks have to go in for Forsberg at some point. I feel terrible for the guy. 8.3% shooting percentage, 56% IPP. He could not be running any colder. Like, if you have not sent an offer for Philip Forsberg in your league, you must do it now. Like, go do it now. That's all I can say about Philip Forsberg at this point. Man is going to pop off. It's going to happen. Alex Tuch next up. I talked about Tuch on the flagship show, so definitely go back and check that out. Yeah, weird situation. I feel like they're going to figure it out a little bit at some point here, but also, it's a bad stretch. Tuch is not playing his best under Lindy Ruff. Maybe Ruff's system isn't necessarily the best for him. And so I'm a little bit concerned about Alex Tuch, and maybe this 66-point pace, 24-goal pace is a little bit more what we should expect moving forward. That would be disconcerting, but it is disconcerting that he hasn't been like a stalwart on top power play like I thought he'd be. Yeah, it's a concerning spot for Alex Tuch in terms of what I thought his projection should be. Do I think he has the potential to snap out of it and become a really valuable player rest of the season? Yes, I do, but I would be lying to say I'm not concerned. Olen Zellweger, no points his last 4 games here. Obviously missed that 1 game with a healthy scratch. Just under 19 minutes average time on ice. Not ideal. 4th in shots per 60. 16th individual scoring chances 4 per 60. Really good individual numbers still from Zellweger. 86th in Corsi 4 per 60. 47th in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Zellweger still showing out in the individual metrics. We got to compare and contrast with Jackson Lacombe, who's also on this list, who has 4 points in his last 4, getting over 20 minutes. Also good underlying metrics for Jackson Lacombe, which is interesting. 18th in shots per 60, 8th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. That's a pretty interesting thing for Lacombe. And Lacombe has been getting some power play run there as well and getting it over Zellweger, which is, yeah, a little bit shocking. I don't think that's too hard to say. I don't think anybody will be surprised about that, but yeah, it's a weird situation, no doubt, because Zellweger does feel like the anointed one there to some extent. But like, let's not forget Jackson Lacombe, 23 years old, was a guy who put up 30 points in 39 games in his junior season at Minnesota, 35 points in 37 games in his senior year. So he had some big point production at the NCAA level, and we can't totally discount that, right? It's not a guy like devoid of talent or anything. It was a 2nd round pick, 39th overall, 2019. So has a little bit of pedigree there as well. And right now he's getting the run. So do I think that Jackson Lacombe is going to be a guy that we're going to roster rest of the season? No. Do I think that it's a guy that you can roster this week? Yeah. 3 off nights for the Anaheim Ducks, you're absolutely going to get him in. Do I think that Zellweger is still a much better player and will take over the offensive role, if not this season, the next season? Yes, still yes. It is still Zellweger. So, yeah. That's where I'm at. Both are tough players to roster for anything more than a spot stream here, but both showing something in their own right for sure, but probably a little bit more. I thought that Zellweger could potentially, grow into a 22-minute top power play guy this year in Anaheim and could really become that guy that you found on the waiver wire who turns into a long-term hold and really does something for you. And with Lacombe getting this and me remembering once again that this is the Greg Cronin hellscape here in Anaheim, yeah, it feels like it's becoming less and less likely as we move along. Another defenseman with some curious power play deployment, Morgan Rielly, 1 assist his last 5 games, 21 minutes average time on ice, 56 shots per 60, 24th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 14th Corsi 4 per 60, 6th on ice scoring chances 4 per 60 for Morgan Rielly. It's an 11-goal, 42-point pace for him on the season. He's been running a little cold, definitely 9.5% on ice shooting percentage, probably should be a little bit higher for a guy like Rielly. Yeah, I mean, it's a spot where when Rielly's on top power play, he's worth, he's going to be a 55, 60-point player. When he's not on top power play, he's a 45-point player. And so it's just a huge difference. It's a huge swing every time he gets moved on and off and on and off the top power play. Right now he's on it. Tomorrow he could be off of it. And that's just kind of the game you're playing with Morgan Rielly right now. That being said, I think there are probably a lot of fantasy managers out there who are pretty fed up with Morgan Rielly. And I think he's going to be at least serviceable, even if he's not on the top power play. Like, I think he's probably a player that you can roster rest of season as like your fourth, fifth defenseman. Even if he gets no more top power play time for the rest of the season, he's still valuable enough, just in terms of the fact that he's going to be on the ice when the Leafs need to score a goal. He's their best offensive defenseman by far. So, yeah, I think that Rielly is probably a buy low, honestly, at this point, but a buy low with the obvious caveat that he's not a guarantee to get power play one time. Jason Robertson here, we talked a little bit about him before when we were, contrasting this here with Michkov, but definitely he's had a nice little stretch, bouncing back, 2 goals, 5 points in his last 5, still under 18 minutes average time on ice, 107 shots per 60, 145 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 in the 20s in the on-ice numbers. So I don't think like the time on ice is going to spike here in a big way, and that's definitely going to hold him down in terms of the, absolute ceiling. I had him for 18.5, so I didn't have him much higher than this. Definitely 8.7% on ice shooting percentage. That should get way better. He should shoot for a higher percentage himself. Overall, I think it's a good sign for Robertson at this point, but it does seem like he just isn't able to generate the same kind of shots that he has been able to in the past. And that's concerning, right? So that knocks off, I had him for a 90-point pace at the start of the season in my projections. I'm knocking that back down to more of around probably an 80-point pace. I'm still comfortable with 75, 80-point pace rest of season. I think I'm still comfortable with that for Jason Robertson. Still a tremendously talented player for sure. Moving along, we got Kevin Fiala, 1 goal, 2 assists, his last 5. 20 minutes average time on ice here. That's interesting stuff for Kevin Fiala. He's not been known to get, huge ice time. I had him projected for 18 minutes average time on ice at the start of the year. He's probably not that far off that on the season. Yeah, just over 17.5 minutes average time on ice on the season. But getting more run here as of late. And that's obviously going to be a good thing. 115th shots per 60, 154 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 117th Corsi 4 per 60, 149 scoring chances, 4 per 60. Last game was playing with Deneau and Laferriere, obviously still on the top power play. So, weird spot for Fiala. I think I've mentioned this before, but it just feels like it's much more of a top 9 situation again with the Kings, but a little bit less talented, it feels like, than it has been in the past somehow. It feels like it hasn't changed like that much, but somehow it still feels worse. I don't know what that is mentally for me there, but yeah, I feel like Fiala is really having to do it all himself this year, and he hasn't quite been able to sustain that 8.7% on ice shooting percentage again. It's a lot of the teammates not pulling their weight, in my opinion, is what's holding Fiala back. I do think he can be a 70-point player rest of season. I feel like decently confident about that, but I don't think that point per game upside that we were all hoping was there is necessarily there with this iteration of the Kings right now. All right, let's get back to the comments for a moment. Click see, what are the stats on Lafreniere looking like? We can do that. I need to pull up the name because he's got the accent, and if I don't get the accent on that name, that doesn't pull up in the sheet correctly. Let me get this here. Copy that, drop it in here. Alexis Lafreniere, and it's not pulling. Did I do this wrong? It's because of that. There we go. We got it. He's got 1 goal, 2 points his last 5, 17 minutes average time on ice, 71st shots per 60, 23rd in shot attempts, 158 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 22nd Corsi 4 per 60, 132 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Obviously, big news here is with Artemi Panarin. If Panarin misses any more time, if there's any more concern about him dealing with something moving forward, then Lafreniere takes a huge hit in terms of his fantasy value. He's very tied to Panarin for sure. Yeah, 25 goal, 57-point pace feels fair. I don't know that I would have a massive difference from that rest of season. I think I projected him for around 30 and 60. I'll double check that for myself here. I had him for 30 and 59. Yeah, 30 goals, 59 points was my projection for Lafreniere. With the Rangers not performing quite as well this year, it feels like, yeah, you can probably knock off 5 points off that, and you're right at where he's at right now. So, yeah, I think that Lafreniere is still a fine player, a fully rosterable player, but if you're expecting some big hit, I don't know if that comes, maybe if the Rangers go full fire sale and Zibanejad's gone and Kreider's gone and Lafreniere is now playing 20 minutes a night with Panarin and on the top line, top power play, and everything's going his way in terms of deployment, then yeah, we'll have a different conversation about Lafreniere. But for now, I think what you see is what you get. Wob asks, what are your thoughts on Spurgeon? Yeah, I mean, as long as he's on top power play in Minnesota, you're going to have some interest, but it's not, he hasn't got the results as of late, right? 22 and a half minutes average time on ice is nice. 36 shots per 60, not too bad. 90th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 53rd Corsi, 4 per 60. 100th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. 10 goal, 36 point pace doesn't feel that far off for Jared Spurgeon. He can probably run a little bit hotter than that while he's on top power play, but I also don't think that he's necessarily likely to maintain top power play for the rest of the season. So, yeah, I think Spurgeon is a streamer level defenseman. Eric Matthew, can you look at Stamkos, Wyatt Johnston, and Valeri? I need to figure out who to move when Yossi comes back. Wow, that is a list. I would be definitely trying to make a trade there. I'd probably be trying, I don't know who you'd trade. Probably Valerie Nichushkin, I guess you'd be trying to trade from that. I don't think you want to sell too low on Stamkos. Wyatt Johnston has been performing obviously a bit better as of late. Still only 2 goals, 3 points his last 5. 20 minutes a night though. 25th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Still does that. So yeah, it's a spot where I mean, if you have to drop one, who do you drop from this list? I feel terrible dropping Wyatt Johnston, but the production just hasn't been there. Wow. If you have to drop one, I guess I would drop Wyatt Johnston. It feels terrible to say that. But I'd be trying to trade Valerie Nichushkin first. CG Brady Shea worth grabbing? Probably not. They are not even letting him be on a top power play with Yossi out. Yeah, it's just a bad scene. Nashville's got to get better before I'm into it. Back to the list. Mike Matheson I talked about in the flagship show, so I'm not going to rehash everything here. Basically, it's a situation where I'm hanging on to him for now. I want to see how long the Lane Hudson top power play thing goes. If it continues to go on, through all of this week, then we can start having a bigger conversation. But Matheson's still skating 26 minutes a night, still a reasonable shot producer, still a good offensive defenseman regardless. So I think he can still be a serviceable defenseman, but obviously it's a massive hit to his fantasy value if he's not getting power play 1. Nichushkin and Ross Colton here. Nichushkin has 2 goals, 3 points in his last 5, just over 19 minutes. Average time on ice, 83rd shots per 60, 110 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 154 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60, and 194 on ice scoring chances. Did I say on ice scoring chances 4? I meant on ice Corsi 4 per 60 and 194 on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Yeah, situation there. I hate doing this on a night when the Avalanche are going to play after this comes out because I feel like everything's going to change and I'm going to look like an idiot for whatever I say about these guys. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think Nichushkin, even with line 2 power play 2, Nichushkin is still a plenty rosterable player, like 65-point player rest of season as a pace. So that's plenty rosterable. I don't think you have to be too worried about that. And if he gets better deployment, then that's just kind of gravy on top. So I don't think you're doing too much with Nichushkin there other than just holding him. Ross Colton, 2 goals in his last 5, now on the top power play again. That's obviously exciting. Underlying metrics have not been too hot, which is concerning for sure, in like the 200s and everything, which is not where we expect Ross Colton to be. But obviously coming back from an injury, so maybe we cut him a little bit of slack there. Overall, Russ Colton is going to need sustained power play 1 to be relevant. And so as long as he's on power play 1, I think that's great. If he's on power play 1, power play 2, I don't know if he can sustain, yeah, if he's on power play 2 and on line 2, I don't know that he can sustain it because it feels like he's the guy who the minutes go away from. It feels like Nichushkin gets more even strength minutes, gets those end of the game when they're trying to win the game, double shifts, those kinds of things go Nichushkin's way rather than Colton's way. And so I feel like Ross Colton's power play 2 line 2 situation is worse than Valeri Nichushkin's line 2 power play 2 situation, if that makes sense. So that's the part that's a little bit concerning. So I think Colton is probably a terrific streamer, probably a guy that you're going to hold a little bit longer because if he's on the top power play, he can absolutely rip it like he showed us before. But yeah, it's not a guy that I think you're going to have to hold all season long for the rest of the season. Kent Johnson, 3 goals, 6 points in his last 5 games, 18.5 minutes average time on ice, 116 shots per 60, 193 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 88th in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 42nd in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Good numbers there on a 43 goal, 87 point pace on the season. Has missed some time, so obviously he's not going to hit that, but yeah, definitely terrific numbers on a per game basis for Kent Johnson so far. I mean, the IPP is sky high, 82%. The shooting percentage is sky high, 23%. The on-ice shooting percentage is pretty high, 13.7%. Definitely some massive regression is coming Kent Johnson's way for sure. But he has trended in the right direction, I would say, with his underlying stats. And so that is, a net positive in terms of what I think his projection can be rest of season. So yeah, right now I don't think he's more than a streamer, but I'm keeping an eye because this is obviously a guy with a big time pedigree. What was he, 4th overall pick that year? Kent Johnson draft pick. He was 5th overall by the Blue Jackets in 2021. So huge pedigree for sure for Kent Johnson. Seems to be finding life under Dean Evison. And I don't want to discount that. Still finding his way in the NHL for sure. So, yeah, I think he's streamer level for now, but definitely a guy that could be much more as soon as this year. Dylan Larkin, he's got no goals but 4 assists in his last 5, over 21 minutes average time on ice, 162 shots per 60, 98th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 140 in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 87th in scoring chances, 4 per 60. Now on pace for 33 goals, 66 points. And yeah, the IPP is low. That's what's really holding them back, in my opinion. And I think it will get better, but it doesn't have to get better necessarily. Detroit is, it's just not a great team. They are, 3rd from the bottom in the Eastern Conference right now, right there with the Sabres, with the Canadiens, below the Jackets. Yeah, bad situation for the Red Wings at the moment. And Larkin is doing his thing, kind of doing what he always does. It doesn't feel like Larkin is performing all that differently from what he usually does. The last stretch has not been great in terms of goal scoring, but arguably ran a little bit too hot before that, so it's kind of just evening out. He needs the teammates to perform, and he needs more than just, I think Lucas Raymond has had probably an overperforming year so far, but some of the other guys have obviously had underperforming years. So needs everybody around him to be producing to hit that kind of ceiling. Yeah, I think if somebody's trying to sell low on Dylan Larkin, I'd still be interested because, yeah, like 21 minutes a night, he's going to get all the opportunities, going to have good stretches rest of season. So I'm definitely not above sending out an offer for Dylan Larkin. If somebody's getting a little bit fed up with Detroit in general, yeah, I'd be into it for sure. I don't think it gets worse than a 33 goal, 66 point pace on the season for Dylan Larkin, put it that way. Let's get back to the comments. CGS, O'Reilly, Rust, Vilardi, or RNH. Just assuming some sort of base point system here. It's between Rust and RNH for me. That's really tough. I think I'll go Rust just on, he's going to get a ridiculous amount of time on ice, and he's been shooting the lights out. He's been tremendous as of late, so maybe it's some recency bias there. RNH definitely right in that conversation there. Last ones is the Stankoven, Stankoven a hold, getting hard to keep him. He's a hold through this week, right? He's got the 3 off nights, Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. So you hold him through here and you reevaluate after that. And I think it's just that simple at the moment. Drewski, I could use an upgrade at D. Currently I have Ghost, Morgan Riley, Sandheim, Spurgeon. Riley really killing me. You think I should trade Crosby for a power play 1D? Anyone comes to mind? Honestly, no. I feel like people overemphasize, like they look at their lineup and they say, oh, I'm weak on D, I have to get better at D. I don't think that's necessarily true. You have 4 serviceable defensemen right now. I would keep mining the waiver wire, keep trying out new streamers, guys like Zellweger, like Lacombe even. Yeah, if anybody gets dropped that you think could be a season-long hold, maybe jump on them. Keep trying these guys out. I think that every time we try to make a trade to like really shore up something, unless it's like a slam dunk trade, usually we end up taking a haircut just to like make ourselves feel better about the balance of our lineup, between left wing and right wing, or between forward and defense like this. And I feel like we overemphasize that sometimes. Usually we end up hurting ourselves more than we help ourselves. Jordan, hey Nate, what are Makar's and Tage's metrics looking like? We can look at that under the hood for sure. Don't often look at guys this high up unless something truly spectacular is going on. Makar, 3 points his last 5, 25.5 average time on ice, 29th shots per 60, 23rd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 45th, Corsi 4 per 60, 59th. In on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60, obviously much higher on the season. 23 goal, 95 point pace. Pretty much exactly what you thought you were getting from Cale Makar when you drafted him in the first round this year is what you've been getting so far. Tage Thompson's got 2 goals, 4 points in his last 5, about 19 minutes average time on ice. Underlying metrics have gone cold here. Honestly, I think that's just all the crazy line juggling that they're doing in Buffalo right now. I think he figures it out. He's still on a 51 goal, 79 point pace on the season. If Alex Tuck gets things figured out, if Peterka gets things figured out and his line mates start to click alongside him, I think he can maintain the 40 to 50 goal pace, and he can probably add a few more assists on top of that and get above the 80 point mark there. So still big on Tage Thompson rest of the season for sure. Michael asked Larkin or Kadri. I will take Larkin there. I think it's a reasonable question, but I'll still take Larkin. Trusky says, thanks Nate, you're a beauty, appreciate you. Chris Nelson, do you like Kent Johnson or Ross Colton as a longer-term holds? I think both of them are pretty deployment-dependent players, so I don't know that I could say that either are holds. I think we've seen that Kent Johnson can be a bigger part of this team, maybe. I feel like Ross Colton is definitely going to get bounced around the lineup, where Kent Johnson could grow into like a central piece of this Blue Jackets team. But yeah, it's a coin flip. CG says I hate Prime. Okay, Megatron. Nuke back up to power play 1, middle stat to power play 2. Do we get confirmation on that? I didn't see it. Do we get a confirmation on that? Let me see. New power play 1 as per below. There it is. McKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Colton, Makar. There we go. All right. I had missed that one. Oh, it came out this afternoon. That's why. All right. There you have it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that changes a whole lot for anything I've said so far. Obviously, it hurts Middlestat, but that's about it. Christopher says Taves or Zellweger. I think with the reinforcements back in Colorado, maybe you take Taves. It's kind of like a floor play versus a ceiling play, but it's valid to question how much of a ceiling there really is in Anaheim at all. So I think you take Taves there at the moment. Looking for a Seattle streamer for a Cats League, thinking Bjork, Beniers, or Tanev. What are your thoughts? I mean, if you need the hits, then Tanev, obviously. He's the one who's going to provide you that. If you don't, then I guess you go Bjorkstrand, just hope you can stay hot. Jordan says, thanks. And we'll close out the list here. We're getting to the end. Gabriel Vilardi, 3 goals, 5 points his last 5, 19.5 minutes average time on ice. Underlying metrics are bad. They have been bad all season long. And he's still on a 33 goal, 61 point pace. Yeah, I feel like it's the same story with Gabe Vilardi. His metrics look a little bit unsustainable for sure. but it's a 33 goal, 61 point pace on the season. And I don't think it's going to be like so far off that at any point throughout the season. He's going to get cold, and he's going to get hot, and he's going to get cold, and he's going to get hot. Maybe it's like a 30 goal, 55 point pace when all is said and done. But yeah, it's pretty close to what you see is what you get. Nice to see him have a nice stretch here, though. Cole Caulfield, 1 goal, 4 points in his last 5. 17 and a half minutes average time on ice is a little concerning. 19th in shots per 60. Good to see him pumping pucks again. 172nd in individual scoring chances for per 60, which isn't what we like to see. 119 Corsi 4 per 60. 186 on ice scoring chances 4 per 60 on a 46 goal, 74 point pace. Feels like, I don't know, St. Louis is not giving him the ice time. Under 18 minutes average time on ice on the season now. And that's just weird. Caulfield, I think, is the most naturally talented player on the entire team. And so I feel like that's a player that you should be handing a ton of minutes to. Without the minutes, like, he's on a 20.7% shooting percentage bender so far. That probably comes down. So the 46 goals is probably a bit too high. But that being said, like, the shots are starting to come up now. So maybe he can improve that. Just volume, that sheer volume, and kind of keep up that way. Yeah, the time on ice is what's concerning me here the most with Caulfield. I think it's a great player, and he'll continue to perform, but the time on ice is probably going to hold him down around this 70, 75 point level, whereas with the 19 plus, I think I had him projected maybe for 19-ish. Let me fact check myself there. I had him projected for 19 minutes, 45 seconds. So if he got back up there, then yeah, we could be looking at point per game plus, but that feels like it's not necessarily in the cards with the way that St. Louis has been choosing to deploy Caulfield. So that's a tough look for sure. Charlie McAvoy and Miro Heiskanen are going to round this thing out for us. 2 points, just assists for Charlie McAvoy. His last 5, 23 minutes average time on ice. 42nd shots per 60, 57th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, but 11th in Corsi 4 per 60 and on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Those are nice numbers there. Definitely he's run cold this year. The whole Bruins team has run cold. I'm not going to hate on it if you're worried about McAvoy. Yeah, it feels like just a really bad scene so far. The 32% IPP is definitely going to improve, but it's valid to question what kind of ceiling this Boston team has at this point with how they've performed thus far in the season. I mean, that being said, they're still in a playoff position, so for whatever that's worth. I think that it's probably a buy low on Charlie McAvoy, but you're gonna have to have some balls of steel to get that one done. Miro Heiskanen, just 1 assist his last 5 games. I don't think he's got anything in this game that's ongoing here. We can double check that. Yeah, it's still 1-0 Washington here in the mid-second, so nothing to report there. 25 minutes, as he will. 54th shots per 60, 131. Individual scoring chances 4 per 60. 35th Corsi 4 per 60. 55th on ice scoring chances 4 per 60 over the last 5. On the season, Heiskanen has actually had some really nice underlying numbers, like even better than previous seasons. 31% IPP, definitely holding him back there. Yeah, that should get better for Heiskanen. I think he should be like a 55, 60 point player with this version of the Dallas Stars, and maybe he can do even a little bit better. I don't have a great reason why Heiskanen isn't performing right now, but it is a player that's had to kind of be efficient to get his point totals because he's not a big time shot producer. Yeah, Heiskanen is probably a buy low, but again, probably a player that you're gonna have to have some balls to put out that offer to buy low on Heiskanen as well. So McAvoy and Heiskanen, 2 guys, if you've got the balls for it, you could go out and buy low on them. We'll close out with the last question here. This one's been a bit of a beefer, but Sam asks, is Waltman a hold rest of the season head-to-head points league with plus minus? I don't even know what Wallman's done the last little bit. Throw him in the sheet just to check. 3 points his last 5. The metrics have fallen off. Still 23 minutes a night. Yeah, I don't think Wallman is a absolute must roster rest of season, set and forget. I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's many players on San Jose that you can reasonably say that about. Macklin Celebrini is one. Maybe McKill Granlund is working his way there. But yeah, Jake Wallman, I don't think is in that circle of trust for me just yet. So 59% IPP is outrageous. That's going to come way down. This is a guy who's been more in the 30s, I think, in his career in the past. So I don't think you can reasonably expect that he's going to continue on at this kind of IPP. So keep that in mind. He's been in the 2 seasons prior to this in Detroit, he's been 33% IPP. Now he's almost double that. So it is the Sharks, but it's going to come down. It's probably going to come down a fair bit. So, don't think Wallman is a guy that you can hang on to confidently rest of season, but definitely a guy that you're rostering right now. All right, I think we made it to the end. That is going to be all that I've got for this episode. So hopefully it brought you some value and helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today and saw on the screen here came from Natural Stat Trick, terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.